Shalom, my friends, and welcome to whatever this is. I suppose it is another episode of a Pilgrim Warrior's Progress. I may post it at various places. I have not made a video in a while, but here I am in some traffic, and I'm hoping to be able to communicate some thoughts. One thing I've been thinking a lot about is how so much time is given to sermonizing and so little thought is given to how personal ministry, laboring for the souls of the very people we encounter in our lives, on the street, in our families, our friends, so forth, those interactions are essential to proper conduct as a Christian. For to be a Christian is to be like Christ. And you look how Christ taught, and he looked at every opportunity as the opportunity to enlighten, to educate, to help, to heal. And those very things are the things that we, as followers of the Messiah, ought to do as well. So I was thinking about how this concept of personal ministry, this concept of what people call Christ's method alone. In the book Ministry of Healing, on page 143 into 144, there's this concept communicated that Christ's method alone will bring true success. Christ mingled with the people as one who desired their good. He met their needs, and then he bade them follow him. So first, you need to mingle with the people, and sometimes this mingling will awaken the ire, I think is the word, or the criticism of some people who are a bit skeptical of you even associating with certain people. Like, you notice how Christ, he mingled with prostitutes, he mingled with tax collectors, he had a secret meeting with a Pharisee, he met with the woman at the well who was of a entirely different religious faction with different conclusions, different perspectives. And what did he do? He asked them questions, and in asking them questions and in having a connection with God and having divine revelation sometimes regarding what their needs were, or them immediately telling him their needs. You see the woman at the well, he simply starts a conversation about drinking, a common human behavior essential for life, and he leads that conversation into a conversation about the fountain of life, which is Christ. And notice how she had 6 women in her life, but 6 men in her life, but the 7th was the Son of God. And I think that harkens back to the number 7 being a number of completion, of true rest, divine sanctification, and that all these 6 men were 6 ordinary men, so to speak, but the 7th man in her life, the 7th husband, so to speak, because we all are the bride of Christ, betrothed unto him, and we can accept that proposal or deny it. That puts us in a position where we can be like that woman at the well who accepts Christ as her true husband, her true Messiah, that set apart one, that set apart man, that man sanctified and set apart from all others, our example. And you notice how in the personal ministry, the personal conversation, personal interview between Nicodemus, or some people like to say the Nick at night incident, because Nicodemus came to him at night in such secrecy because he was ashamed of even considering him as a wise man or Messiah or figure of significance. And he talks to him about birth, and a common thing that all people have gone through, and all born people have gone through, and he communicates truths of life-saving truths in relation to this concept of birth And we can do the same thing. I like to call this type of ministry miscellaneous facts. And in these instances, he talks about drinking, he talks about birth. And we see that in public, he talked about the miscellaneous facts of farming, of building. He talks about building a tower. He talks about farming. He talks about sowing seed. He talks about a wedding. Like, common human activities can correlate to significant spiritual truths. And in relation to this, I was thinking about how to communicate the concept of Christianity, the concept of a God, the concept of worship, of following an example of a figure to a non-believer or a ritualistic believer, like people like to call people CEO Christians or CEO Catholics, where they just are Christmas, Easter only. They might go to church on Sunday sometimes, but really their religion is a ritualistic, traditional adherence to the customs of man and not the instructions of heaven. And I think a good question you can have in this miscellaneous facts ministry, you can ask your friends, you can ask your family, is who is your role model? Because this concept of having a role model upon whom to look to for example, look to for to ask yourself what would they do in this situation. People often look for a mentor in entrepreneurial endeavors, look for a professor to teach them the ways of photography or science, a teacher to educate them on anatomy and physiology and so forth. So this concept is prevalent in all different categories of human beings. And I was thinking of a certain relative of mine, and I was thinking of her and saying, well, I think I could start a conversation and say, so who's your role model? Who do you follow after? Who do you have an example of? And who do you believe is setting the truth, living a life in accordance with your values, and what do you strive for? And to furthermore examine like what those values or beliefs are. And the word values might be less, might be more might be more appropriate for certain individuals, because we all have values, we all have beliefs, we all have convictions, and these questions arise related to those things, and we have choices. So take that into consideration when you're talking to your friends. Like, think about what questions you can ask, because many times Christ would be asked a complicated question, or a question that was probing or meant to be provocative, and you see that he would give like thought-provoking answers and ask simple questions in response. You notice the incident where he is the Pharisees are trying to trap him into saying that you shouldn't pay taxes, and then Rome would be upset with him, and he responds by saying, "Who has a coin? Show me a coin." And he takes that coin and he says, "Whose face is on this?" And he's inviting these people to answer their own questions. So it's not his words that are in question, but their own response. And when you cause people to think, when you ask thought-provoking questions, they can't really argue with themselves in the same kind of way they could argue or dismiss the things you have to say. So that's a valuable thing to consider, is let people change their own minds by giving response to your question